You're listening to China Manufacturing Decoded from the Sofeast Group. Hi, welcome along to episode 249 of the podcast, and this is a special bonus holiday season podcast. I'm Adrian, and Renaud joins me, and we are rounding out the year just before Christmas. But first, Renaud, season's greetings to you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Adrian, and happy holidays to all the listeners then.
We're recording just before Christmas Eve. So, yeah, Merry Christmas to everybody celebrating, otherwise happy holidays. I mean, we were just talking off air and, you know, it's kind of winding down for the year, and hopefully when you're listening to this, you're sort of chilling out a little bit at home and you've got your nice food and having a restful time. Not exactly the same in China, not quite so restful.
Right. Well, things they don't even slow down here, actually, right? This week, I don't know if we have visiting customers, but we've had visiting customers. And when I say visiting, some of them come and stay for a week or two, or sometimes more in Dongguan, in Agilian. We've had 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, per week easily over the past few weeks. And now I don't even know if we have one of them now in this week coming. So things are not slowing down, but the visits are slowing down. Yeah, that's what we would say, yes.
Yeah, that's a commitment to the cause, visiting China to go check on production or other things during Christmas week. That's if you really don't like Christmas, or if you're trying to get away from the bad weather.
Yeah, right. Yeah, some people really hate Christmas, right? However, on the 24th, we're recording this on the 23rd on Monday, but on Tuesday we do a little Christmas lunch, whatever, a Christmas themed lunch, let's say, for the teams. So even though it's not a holiday, it's nothing. We just we work mostly with foreign customers, and it's kind of a big holiday for them. Let's just try to have a little bit of fun, and then everybody goes back to work.
It's nice to do. And so New Year's Day is a holiday in China, but then Chinese New Year is looming, and that's coming up it's the 20th, isn't it, of Jan? So not too far away now. And that's a whole nother topic with its own challenges, right? But I mean, if you're getting manufacturing done in China, for example, you're going to be on top of the fact that Chinese New Year is coming pretty soon. By now, if you're not, then it's going to be a rude awakening, I suppose.
Yeah, but that's for sure. We see a lot of impacts. I mean, Chinese New Year is really looming over us, as you mentioned. The suppliers of components and materials are busier than usual. There's more late deliveries, that impact a little bit of everything, all the schedules of productions. People obviously are thinking of, the upcoming holiday, and, the customers are pushing and they want everything done and shipped out before the New Year, the Chinese New Year. So this is a high intensity period, right? Especially with Trump's tariffs. I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago.
Yep.
But one of the things people did is front load the inventory, get the inventory earlier in their warehouses. So a lot of factories are busy. Let's say it this way.
Yeah, and again, the change in president in the US, this is a story that's going to run. Exactly what direction that's going to take in 2025, well, we don't know yet, right? But we will, of course, be keeping an eye on it and discussing any changes as and when we know about them. There was a news item which I think is just worth mentioning, and the Chinese government just announced significant changes to what they call their visa-free transit policy. I'll share the links to this so you can go read on. But for some countries, for example, France, being able to travel into China visa-free has been a reality for about a year or so now, hasn't it, Renaud? But for others, not so much, like the UK or the USA, for example.
Basically, the idea is that if you come just for a few hours or a few days, you don't need a visa if you're from a certain country, right? So for countries like Malaysia, a bunch of European countries, etc., except for the UK, people on a tourist or business trip can go to China without requiring a visa if it's less than 15 days, I think.
Yes.
But this policy is for shorter trips, right?
It's kind of between the two, right? What you're talking about is visa-free, and this is visa-free transit policy, and this is what we need to make listeners aware of, right? So eligible foreign travelers can stay in China for up to 240 hours, that's 10 days, right, without a visa. But they have to be traveling to a third country or region. So what that means is you've got to be passing through China as part of a journey between two different countries or regions. So for example, let's say you're from the USA, you're going to the USA, then you go to China, and then you're going to Japan, and that's all one journey, right? Instead of not being able to stay in China for a long period of time, you can fly from the US to China, stay in China for 10 days, which is, long enough to go see suppliers and stuff like that, right? For example, and then you travel onwards to Japan. And I imagine they want to see that you've got all those flights booked and everything.
That's pretty interesting. However, if you go from USA to Japan, why would you go through China? It's not really transit, right? I think they might ask for something like, oh, you're going from Los Angeles to Hanoi, and then on the way you stop over in Shanghai and you do certain things. Maybe that qualifies. Maybe what you mentioned does not qualify. We don't really know. You might want to contact Chinese consulate close to you and ask them. But this, when we saw that, we're like, whoa, 240 hours. Like it means you can stay up to 10 days without a visa. Interesting, right? So that's for people who are not very committed to China, let's say, who don't really want to get a visa, or who, don't have a visa yet. It does make things a little bit easier.
And it includes citizens from 54 countries, right? So including countries that don't benefit from the visa-free system, and that includes Brazil, the UK, the USA, Canada. So a number of these countries, like the English-speaking Western countries, which are not on great terms with China, we don't get visa-free, right? But with this scheme, citizens from those countries can still go to China for 10 days. But I think what's important to note as well, Renaud, is my understanding, transit travelers are permitted to move freely across 24 specified provincial level regions during the 10-day stay. So it's not like you can just go to Shanghai or Shenzhen for a couple of days. You can actually travel around in China. And when we talk about, 24 provinces, I mean, that's basically all of China. There are
except maybe for Tibet or Xinjiang.
And Xinjiang, yeah, or no doubt that you're correct on that. And there are 60 ports where you can come in. It's not just you can go to one city, you can actually travel around. So, if you come into Shanghai and then you're going to go to, I don't know, Suzhou or somewhere like that, you can actually do that. It's not going to be a problem. Jump on the train and just do it. Interesting, because if you're from the US and you previously had to get a visa, maybe now you don't need to get a visa if you're actually transiting onwards. So yeah, food for thought there.
Yeah, if little trips like this are sufficient, right?
Yeah.
Most people, if you, manage a product that is getting made in China, if you're in the purchasing department, quality department, etc., you very probably already have a business visa to China, right?
Yeah.
So that's more for bringing your colleagues around. You're not sure.
Yeah. From this year, I mean, we've undergone quite a few changes. I was only over there recently, during October, for example, and I've already said every time I come, there's something new happen. I mean, we opened a new office in Shenzhen. We moved our main Sofeast office in China side to a new place in Shenzhen. It's next to Miao, which is quite a central area.
Actually, if you want to meet with us, you better come to Dongguan.
True.
So Shenzhen office used to be very central, at least for all our supply chain management and product engineering kind of work until about 2018. And then over time, we moved a lot of things over to Dongguan. So we don't encourage people to come to Shenzhen. because they might not find the right people there. But we still have some employees there, etc. So we still have an office there, and it's useful for certain things. Yeah, there's an office move. Actually, we did more big moves in 2023 than in 2024. 2023, we opened the plastic and mold shop. 2024, we had the opportunity to extend it because we saw that it's a fast-growing part of our business. So now it's larger, and this year we started to make some silicone parts also. The certain departments where not much has changed, like the quality assurance department. It's been pretty much the same team doing roughly the same amount of work and the same type of work as last year. So pretty mature, stable teams there. Not not with a lot of growth, but also with very minimal customer turnover. So we're happy with that. When we look at the project managers and logistics, drop shipping, all these type of things, just been a bit of growth. Again, we're happy with the team development. And there's always a bit of staff turnover, right? But not that much. R&D has grown quite a bit. There's now 3 teams for mechanical engineering. One of them had to be relocated close to the prototyping lab. The electronics team has probably doubled in size. So there's been some work, but there's continuously a lot of demand for product engineering work in China, just next to the suppliers of components and all together, because we integrate the electronic side and the mechanical side, right? And the firmware. So it's a matter of growing while still doing a reasonably good job. And that's sort of the challenge, more than just growing.
Oh, of course.
Growing is easy if we just take everything that comes our way, I would say. Apart from that, prototyping lab, we have a few more 3D printers. We have a Nexa 3D printer, LCD printer, that's supposedly the fastest on the market. It's pretty fast and much better than the one we had before. And we have a few bamboo. It's very, very common brand, very successful brand of FDM 3D printers that are helping us go fast. In some cases, we need to make a lot of parts to make prototypes. So that's good. We've been making some trials with what they call freeform injection molding. So it's the idea of, hey, it's kind of a big investment to go into tooling with hard steel or even soft steel, and it takes a while. Why not 3D print the molds? But then the problem with 3D printed molds is just the same problem as with vacuum casting molds, is that if the shape does not allow you to demold easily, then what do? And the big breakthrough here is that technology from Denmark allows us to dissolve a part of the mold to get the part out, right? If necessary. So that opens a lot of possibilities, and we're still experimenting with it, and I'm sure we'll find a lot of ways it can be useful. Otherwise, the prototyping lab is running pretty busy. We've been bringing some bigger products this year than last year on average, and several household, electrical household appliances that are not small.
Yeah, like kitchen counter size things. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So that has also had an impact with assembly operations at Agilian. Whereas we were pretty happy to have everything on the second floor and different workshops there, and to have relatively small assembly lines, not exactly cells. It depends. It depends how we set it up, but not the traditional long lines that the Chinese companies often really love, with the conveyor belt and everything.
Yeah.
But then it's not so easy to actually make some big products. it's much easier for little things, the size of a phone, let's say, that you can pass from hand to hand. Okay, not that we make any phones, just to give an idea about the size, right? So now on the 5th floor, we have 2 long lines that are better optimized, let's say, for big products, but also for long running assembly jobs where you don't, where it's more low mix, high volume type of work, right? Where you can optimize it, you can do some feeder stations that are connected, et cetera, and then the whole thing just work on making it flow and on balancing the line and making it flow and so on. Yeah. One has a little conveyor belt in the middle, which is optional, and the other one has not exactly a conveyor belt, but you can push some like bigger objects on, like it's like roller tables. So you push it and it moves very easily left to right, but it's not mechanized, which I like very much. So a lot more space up there. 2024 is when we started to do stitching. So that's stitching work. So yeah, stitching. I mean, who would think? You say, oh, we're just going to make electromechanical products here because we can't make like everything, right? And then you end up like stitching some kinds of bags and some kinds of soft parts of wearable products and things like that. But actually there's a logic to that. Sometimes it's different products of the same customers. Sometimes it's just that the typical cut and sew factories are not interested in certain types of jobs when the requirements are pretty specific and the volume is not necessarily very high. It can be very, very challenging to find a factory that's willing to take certain jobs. Okay, so we'll take it. And what we did is interesting, is instead of hiring some people, hey, you already know how to do stitching, right? Okay, come here. It's just simple. This is single needle stitching. Just go ahead and, do a bang-on job, right? But then these people will say, well, you pay me by the piece. And this is something like, we will not do that. This is no good. This doesn't go well with our HR systems, with everything. So we will not do that. We pay by the hour, and it's our job to set up the processes the proper way. And we will never give an incentive to people to just go fast. Quality has to come first, right? So we took some people who were already just doing simple like assembly work or packing work, etc., and say, yeah, you want to learn something new? And then we got them to basically learn how to do stitching. I mean, it doesn't mean they had never stitched anything or sewn anything, right? But it was a slow start for sure. But after a few months, they were already sort of hitting the standard, and maybe not a very high target, but a target that makes it worthwhile. That, and we also bought an automated stitching machine for stitching flat parts of fabrics that can be sewn flat, basically, right, of a certain size, and then it makes a lot of sense. You put the templates in place and so on to keep it in a certain way on the bed of the machine, and it goes it does everything very fast and with high accuracy, which is quite important, right? So that's a big one for production. What am I forgetting here?
PCBA?
I think we bought the low volume prototyping SMT machine end of last year. So I don't think, or maybe was it earlier this year? I'm not so sure. But basically the idea is to go faster with prototyping of the electronic designs without necessarily, bothering the production shop. So we do that on small builds, basically, just to get things going, to get the prototype and test it faster. It's really all about going fast at this point. That's the main objective. And I think that's about it at a level.
No, that's good. And there's kind of a difference between services and, the more tangible prototyping, product engineering and production side of things. So services tends to be more on the Sofeast side. So that's like your product inspections, where the inspectors go to your supplier's factory, for example. And then you've got, literally prototyping your product, developing it and manufacturing it. So that's more on the Agilian side. So those are the two different sides. If you go to the Agilian website, you're going to see a lot of images and videos of the different, manufacturing cells, as you've been talking about, and all of those capabilities. So links will be in the description as they normally are. Now, for next year, as we start to come to the end of this bonus episode, we do have some guests coming up. There'll be a break between Christmas and New Year. So 27th, there won't be a podcast. And then our next episode will be on January the 3rd. And Owen Hockey is joining you, and he's a supply chain expert, and you're talking about HTS codes, tariffs, and basically importing into the US, which is extremely timely. And by the start of January, we are almost getting towards inauguration time, where the president-elect becomes president again. And I guess that's when as we mentioned, that's when things start to get really interesting for American importers. But Owen does make some interesting points about, some ways that you can kind of maybe finesse the way that you're doing things. And there are ways to potentially find better HTS codes, all legal, all above board, which could help you to avoid the largest amounts of import duties. But I'll leave that for everybody to listen to on January the 3rd. And we'll be having more great guests in the new year. If you're listening and you're thinking, I've got questions, I've got ideas for the podcast, please do contact us, sofeast.com contact page, and let us know what you're thinking. We are happy to address your ideas and questions in 2025, and we always love to get questions from our listeners, which we do periodically, which is great. And from 2024, just quickly, a few of the top episodes that we've covered this particular year, in case you didn't hear them already. So the top episode from this year was actually 7 key MPI tasks to do before you take your product into production. Why do you think this one resonates so much?
First, it's a list, right? So people are like, oh, what are these points? What is it, right? And then, before taking a product into production, oh, really? I just thought I would get the prototype right, and then that's it. It's ready for production, right? So I think maybe a little bit of curiosity, getting the BOM right and doing your reliability testing and your compliance testing and getting the tooling right and blah, blah, blah. People are like, oh, okay.
And the second one was, what's a good quality assurance auditing and inspection program for new products?
I guess if our audience is composed of a lot of people who develop new products, that's okay. How do I ensure that it's going to be, good quality? How do I reduce the risks? That's also relatively interesting, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's universal, isn't it? Everybody needs to know this kind of thing. Third one, exploring plastic injection molding pilot runs.
Right. Well, basically, it's not like you make the tooling, you make the mold, and then you say, okay, it's ready to go. You need to validate things. And what people don't understand is if you have a relatively high quality standard, you really want to reduce the risks, then you don't just make 5 shots and say, oh, okay, this one is fine. Okay, like we'll find a way to get back on our feet when we start production. It's fine, right? You want to push it a bit. You want to see how consistently you can get good products. So that's the right approach for that.
The fourth, cost versus quality, how manufacturers can find a balance. No surprise that this is also interesting to a lot of people.
Right. Yeah, the eternal questions, right?
Yeah.
Well, both are important. Like, how can I choose? Well, maybe you should not choose. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the fifth, you discussed with Andrew, from poorly made in China to made with quality in China. So it was like China's transition from kind of cheap and nasty to actually, high quality stuff.
There's still the cheap and nasty.
Absolutely.
It hasn't disappeared.
No.
But there's more and more also of high quality products. And it's kind of tragic because a lot of importers now are looking at some other countries, Vietnam and so on, and they think, wow, when I make things in China, like I've fine-tuned the whole thing. I have some very capable suppliers. If, over time I find some good suppliers, I can really do a great job. And now I need to go to another supply chain and everything, like teach them everything again. And it's like China 20 years ago, and I'm not going to make the same high quality product, right? And it's kind of heartbreaking to professionals. So China more and more is seen as a source of high quality product, or at least a place where if you know what you're doing, you can get some high quality products for a very reasonable price, right?
So yeah, that was top 5. I'll leave a list of the top 10 in the show notes for this episode. So if you're listening during the holiday period and you're like, I want to dive into this, I've got a bit of time. Well, there you go. We got you covered. Yeah. Renaud, I think we'll call it quits for this year.
Yeah.
I think that's enough. But thanks for joining me on this special sort of pre-Christmas episode where we've gone through, some of the key points of the year, and also that information about the visa-free transit for everybody. So once again, happy holidays to you and the listeners. I hope everybody has a very restful and lovely time and going into the new year as well. Best wishes.
Right. Yeah. Best wishes from me too. And thank you, Adrian, for all the work you put in the podcast. And thanks for the listeners who keep coming back and send us some comments from time to time and some ideas, etc. So much appreciated.
Totally agree. Echo that 100%. So that's it. See everybody in 2025. Thanks again for listening to this podcast brought to you by the Sofeast Group. We're on a mission to provide you with everything you need to manufacture effectively in Asia, including inspections, auditing, new product development support, contract manufacturing, 3PL warehousing and fulfillment, and much, much more across Asia's key manufacturing areas. Visit us at sofeast.com, that's SOFEAST.com, to learn more and get help. If you've enjoyed the podcast today, please do rate, review and share, because it will really help others discover us too.